the Oculus Quest does full 6-DoF control. It's very intuitive. And I feel like that is going to be something that the game industry will move toward over the next 10 years. The technology is getting a lot more stable now. The complexity is, of course, getting that inside-out tracking without having to mark up your environment in order for that to work. And machine learning is going to make all that stuff a lot easier. More fine haptics, I think, is a big thing. I will say also, if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said for the home and for personal use, simplicity is where we're going. And then I feel like we're going to see a big resurgence in location-based things like arcades, the places where you go to experience a particular thing. In a post-COVID world, maybe that won't happen anymore. But I guess we'll have to see how things play out. Because people don't want to be sharing input devices and things you put on your hands and face anymore. So, but yeah, I think 6-DoF is a big thing. Sorry, and eye gaze as well. So things that you can look at, things that you can touch, just more human, natural control.
Thank you. And now you, Erin, can you think of input devices that will be massively adopted in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I got to agree with these guys here. I know you guys can't see me, but I'm like nodding my head in agreement with these guys as they're talking, because yeah, we've seen a lot of cool advancements. I was just looking at the Xbox adaptive controller, and I think gaming your way is like a really interesting theme that it obviously helps accessibility cases, but it also helps those of us who just don't feel comfortable with certain controls. We want to do remapping, we want to do control things the way that we want to control them. I definitely have some unusual button mapping configurations across my mouse and keyboard and stuff as I game on the PC. So, being able to play the way that feels comfortable to you, especially as we as game developers get older, I think we will start to see far more use cases where our wrists don't work as well, our fingers are a little stiffer than they used to be, our shoulders don't, work as well as they used to. So, accessibility will continue to be a major thing. Agreed with the eye tracking. I think one thing that we haven't talked a bit about is voice. Voice as a controller. I think, obviously we've seen some kind of fun experimental things on the PlayStation with their voice controller, being able to speak in, and some interesting implementations on things like Until Dawn, which I thought was really fun. But those are all kinds of gimmicky things. But now that we're starting to see Alexa take off and actually have cancel, don't talk to me. There is, this whole new world of gaming that we can have that is controlled just by voice and storytelling. So I think that's kind of what I'm really excited about.
That's great. Thank you so much. So we covered the input. Thank you for bringing up voice. I think that in terms of UX in general, voice is probably going to be really, really big in the next 5 years. So let's talk about how we experience the games. And there's a lot of great things happening here. NVIDIA recently showcased a new card that has ray tracing, which is super exciting. And we have the world of extended realities, so VR, AR, MR, which gives you many other ways to experience the game visually. And then we have new senses that you can engage. When I was at CES earlier in the year, I tried on a vest that will actually get the sounds and moving in my body as I was experiencing a game. So there's a lot of different things there. How do you see the gaming industry embracing these different outputs? Or do you see two-dimensional screen still dominating in the next 10 years? I'll start with you, Grant.
Oh man, that's a really hard question. I think that to answer the latter part of your question, I think in 10 years, I think flat 2D screens will still be the dominant, mostly because of mobile devices and the accessibility of them, right? You have something like 6 or 7 billion mobile devices in the world right now, and those are, they're cheap in that everybody can get one, and most people need one, and they aren't a dedicated thing. So I think for the next 10 years, that'll still dominate. I think if we were having a 20-year conversation, that would be a little bit different, but I couldn't predict it. But as far as adopting all these different things, it's something that really excites at least everybody that I work with. And it comes down to two things. One, you might think the first thing is the idea. Do you have an idea that works on these devices? But really the first thing is the market going to be big enough for me to create something for this device? Right now, VR is finally getting to the point where it's big enough where developers are comfortable investing a larger amount of money. I think that for the last few years, as it's been growing, people have been like, oh, there's not quite the adoption rate that I would want to invest $2 to $3 million to make sure that I can get a return. I think we're finally at that stage now. You see Valve putting money into it and stuff like that as more people are going to get into it. I think AR is probably the thing that's going to grow the most in the next 10 years because it can pair with that mobile device. And obviously things like Pokemon Go are huge, and there's a bunch of other games like that. So yeah, I think that those markets are going to grow. I don't see any new technology on the horizon that's going to disrupt all of that in the next 10 years. I think graphical fidelity is always improving. Streaming services like Stadia are going to just continue to grow. In general, yeah, it's a great time to make games because there's so many opportunities to make different games for different devices.
Do you want to make a prediction of 20 years, Grant?
20 years, eyeballs, and VR glasses will just be our normal glasses. That's my 20 years.
All right. I think that if I collected $1 for every conference that I went and I heard that VR was going to have mass adoption in the next 5 years, I'll be a millionaire right now. And we've been in this window of adoption of 5 years for like 10 years. And the first time that I did VR was in 95, so it's been a while. And so Alejandro, let's go with you. Do you think that the two-dimensional screen will still dominate the next 10 years, or do you think that there's going to be other outputs that will take their place?
No, I think it's going to be 2D for the next 10, 15, I'll even say 20 years. Technology is getting better, but it's slow going. There's like legitimate physics problems that I got to see while I was at Magic Leap they're just very difficult to overcome without major advancements in material science, without major advancements in electronics and manufacturing, and it's all happening, but I don't think it's going to be as quick as the technology curve has been over the last 30, 40 years. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that, personally. But yeah, I think the more than the way that we receive it is, I think the experiences are going to change the most. I think we're going to continue to see as we have improvements in not improvements, but developments and innovation in design, from user experience, for like mechanics, things like that. I think that's going to be a more significant change than what we see in the actual display and the way we receive it. I think we'll continue to see more powerful machines, better graphics, et cetera, dominate in a 2D world. That's my opinion.
Okay, I didn't ask Erin if you wanted to make a prediction of 20 years on the way we experience the game. Do you want to chime in on that, Erin?
20 years, I don't know. But I know, obviously gaming, is a huge part of our lives, but I think the way that gaming elements manifest in our marketing and the way that we interface with, experiences. So going to concerts, I think COVID has taught us a lot about, hey, you don't actually have to be there to still have fun. So, creating experiential, for lack of a better terms, experiential experiences that you can experience from home. Lots of experiencing in that sentence. But I'm looking forward to things like being able to sit down at a poker table and like, hang out with friends in VR and go to Vegas without having to go there. I love the kinds of things that they're doing in theme parks where they have AI, screens there that can actually help guide you around the park and give you a much more friendly way to look for food and look for stores and look for rides. I think that, there's going to be a lot more integration with the way that we consume games in general with second screen experiences and, actually having, being able to sit and look up your map for Last of Us 2 on your phone, and do some maintenance there in your inventory while you're waiting for something to happen in the game, or more ways to be able to consume and watch and play together with Twitch streamers. So I think it's the manifestation of these things in other ways of our lives that gaming will have a big influence on that, I think. But still 2D screens, I think I agree with these guys.
It is very interesting to talk about the influence of gaming, and we'll get into that in a second. You mentioned the parks, and I live in Orlando, but all the parks are. And I recently was started by saying I'm much older than all of you guys. I developed vertigo, and so I can no longer get into rides. And as I was visiting the parks the last time a few months ago, my kids had to go into the line to go experience the rides while I'm just stay behind for hours and hours with my wife. And I started looking around and saying, they gotta create a version of the park for me.
Yeah.
That I can experience a different layer of the park that I can experience without getting on a ride.
Yep.
And even if it's as simple as my phone looking for stuff like a Pokemon Go or something. And because there is a percentage of parents out there that cannot get into, or even normal people, into rides, and there's plenty to experience. I think that gaming influences all those things. And so now let's talk about how we get the games. We have gone from single game consoles, like my first example of Pong, a hardware machine that only could play one thing, to cartridges and discs and downloads, and now even streaming. At every step, trying to make it easier to obtain the game, to reduce friction in the process of obtaining the game. Are we moving towards a console-less world? How are we going to get our games in the next 10 years? I'll start with you, Erin.
Well, I'm a little biased because I spent almost 5 years of my life working on PlayStation Now, which is cloud streaming. So I'm a bit biased. I believe in the technology. I do think it will be ubiquitous. I think it's great that Stadia's, also picked up the mantle there, and that now we have competitors, and that actually forces that entire industry to get better. I think the thing that we've been kind of waiting for in cloud gaming is infrastructure, right? And that's the biggest hurdle to get over, and that's something that all competitors share. So, 5G internet is obviously going to be a major win for mobile gaming and things like streaming, game streaming. So, as we improve the infrastructure of the internet around the world, I think so too will the belief in game streaming as a thing. I think most people can't really imagine that right now, but I think it will be the way to get your gaming, and that opens up an entire world of possibilities. Like, we can stream games to a smart refrigerator, so you could have these amazing, chunky, awesome, powerful games being created, being played out of a data center, and you just get the video output. And so it allows us to make bigger, better worlds, to use that computing power that you don't necessarily have in your living room to kind of maximize that experience. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be awesome. I want to be able to play amazing big, like the new Far Cry 6 looks awesome. I want to be able to play that on my little iPad and have it look perfect. So we'll see.
Oh, that's great, Erin. And it's great that you have the experience in the cloud side, because it's important to know the advances there. I go with you, Alejandro. Do you think we're going to have a console-less world? And how we're going to get our games?
I think I think we're already taking those steps toward the console-less. I do think it's going to be a while, though. Maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's more than that, because we have a critical problem right now, which is infrastructure. And people just don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the bandwidth in our infrastructure to handle the amount of data that we're streaming back and forth. And it goes for a lot of different things. Not just streaming, you know, our inputs and our video that comes back, but as we, you know, as technology advanced, VR becomes a bigger thing, you know, MR and AR become a bigger thing. Now we're talking about doing fully 3D rendered, you know, and performance capture in full 3D. The amount of data involved in that is ridiculous. And we just don't have the bandwidth. I think the 5G is a big step toward it. And I'm kind of curious how that's gonna compete with, you know, all the hard lines that we have across the country. But once the infrastructure problem is solved, then all bets are off. Until then, we're definitely going to have download, you know, and load.
Download and load. How about you, Grant?
Sorry, before we move on, can I comment really quick? You mentioned streaming stuff to Erin mentioned streaming stuff to a refrigerator. When did we decide that was the thing we wanted to be smart in our house? With refrigerators.
I was reading this interesting. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was reading this interesting interview with. He's somebody very high up in EA. He might be the CEO of EA, but he was talking about, wouldn't it be cool if you had your smart refrigerator and you had eggs in it, and you had like the count of whatever food you have in your fridge, and that's also what your Sims have in their house, and like maybe you get a bonus for having had eggs in your fridge, and you need to make an omelet. And I'm like, is that fun? I don't know, but I'm here for it. I'm totally fine with a smart fridge knowing and affecting my my Sims game. But I is.
Sorry for derailing the conversation. I just never looked at my ice box and thought, man, I wish this thing was smarter.
That's right. That's right.
Sorry, go ahead, Crane.
No, I love that because I've been watching that smart fridge thing for a while, and I still don't get it. And I think there was a show on TV, Modern Family, had a whole episode where there was an AI embedded in the fridge, and they all develop a relationship with the fridge, and as a therapist, and it's very, very funny. But who knows? I don't know why the fridge has to be smart, but maybe it becomes a great place to play games. Grant, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the simple answer is what Erin and Alejandro said, which is it's not a developer problem, it's a ISP problem. They need to go solve this, and they need to not limit people's bandwidth. They need to not put data caps on people, because it's going to be really hard for us to convince someone who only gets 500 gigs of data a month, convince them to be getting a terabyte of data in a week playing Assassin's Creed, right? So that's something that we need to work with them to solve. I spent early days of Stadia, I probably spent 100 hours playing with it, and I had played all the way back when OnLive started, which was in 2007 when this technology first started, 2007, 2008. I played that, and there was latency issues, and there were all these things, and I was like, this is never going to work. But I played hundreds of hours on Stadia and never experienced an issue. And when I could play Assassin's Creed Odyssey on a Chromebook, pause my game, go do something else, close my laptop, come back, open it up, and was instantly playing without a load screen, I was convinced that was it. Like,
Awesome.
I don't need a console or whatever. That is my console. Wow. It's truly awesome. But I live in a very privileged place. I have Google Fiber internet, so I am literally the 1% of their target demographic that they're like, we know it's going to work for you because you are a Google through and through person. So we got to solve that. And then as far as it being a console-less world, I think it's probably the next generation. I mean, this generation that's coming has diskless options. So that's a big step forward. Physical media, I think, is sadly dying. But I think that there will always be collector's editions and things like that you can get. But a game I shipped recently, we shipped a physical edition, and when you opened up the physical edition, it was a download code. So it's like, there's no physical disc media. And that's something that, has been interesting to see in my career. Basically, it's on its last legs, physical media, which can be really sad for us because I love going to the midnight releases at GameStop and signing games and getting my physical copies and all that. But yeah, it's the future.
We gotta make new. We gotta make new launch exciting. You gotta make new online exciting stuff.
Everybody's on Discord together. Woo!
Everybody get your VR headset on and stand in line at a VR store to get your disc, and then you go and you play it in your VR living room.
I'm in it. I'm there.
So we had some technical difficulties the first 10 minutes. So so some folks missed the first portion of the conversation, and our friend Albert actually sent in a question asking about inputs. And so I'm gonna go ahead and reroute this question because some folks missed it, and because we love Albert, and he'll be in my next Tech Tuesday anyway. And so for you, Albert, and everyone outside out there, let's go into inputs again. But let's just go directly to 20 years. And I'll start with you, Grant. What are the inputs in 20 years? We already talked about 10 years.
Man, I had such an elegant answer before. I think that inputs, will continue to be simplified, and then replicating reality. That's probably our goal in a lot of ways, is to simplify things for people, but also replicate. So if you're playing VR, right, you get the haptic feedback of feeling things, and you're actually touching something and you can feel that, and then the simplicity of trying to make it accessible to anybody, using voice, eye, whatever that might be.
How about you, Alejandro? Inputs of the next 20 years.
Yeah, I think Grant said it. I think what he didn't say was mind control technology. I think that's the one that's missing. But yeah, more human-centric input mechanisms between eye gaze, sixth off, full hand gesture, biometrics, etc.
And Erin, how about you? 20 years, the new inputs.
Voice and eyes. I'm hoping these glasses, if I get new ones in 20 years, I tend to keep my glasses for a very long time. So we'll see. If I'm still around, we're using these guys, some kind of modification tool, but I'm hoping that I can control everything with gazes. I did a demo for the Tobii eye tracking pretty recently. Incredible technology. Completely played Hearthstone, completely hands-free. You just use your eyes to move cards up and play minions and make attacks. It's really amazing. So eye technology is coming.
So what I will say, one thing that was covered that wasn't covered is things that probably will not be input. I know there's a lot of talk of Iron Man UI and Minority Report UI. I don't think that's going to happen. Period. There's actually a lot to be said about humans and fatigue. And there's actually there's a certain amount of time which every human will get fatigued by holding their hands above their elbows. So that's why it's so comfortable to just hold your controller on your lap. So I think we won't go too far away from that when it comes to actual gestures. And the same thing said for eyes. At Magic Leap, we got to do some testing with picking up objects with your eyes and literally dragging them across the screen with your eyes. And if you do that for too long, you get very, very fatigued and very tired.
It's exhausting. It is. Just playing a game of Hearthstone is exhausting because you don't think about you have to think about every move you make with your eyes, and it is like you actually get eye fatigue from and just thinking fatigue. So it's definitely true.
Yep.
Wow. I like this round much better. It was much more insightful. Uh, let's talk about a little bit about the industry. We have rising cost of development. That begs the question if that is sustainable. The other side is a marketplace that is, at least in the consoles, is very well defined and begs the question if there's room for disruption and innovation. And so I want to pair those two things together: the rising cost of creating games, paired with what it seems like a limited uh, channels of distribution for the major titles. How is that going to affect innovation in the next 10 years for video games? I'll start with you, Alejandro.
I wish I could talk about the next 10 years. Let me start by talking about what's going on right now, which is we're all seeing this move toward live service. And that is a direct result of the fact that games take so much money, so much effort, so much time to develop. And it is much easier to retain an existing customer than to gather new ones. With a new product cycle, you're having to make sure that like you're pulling eyes and hearts and lives away from some other product to be on this product. Once you have them, it's much easier to retain. And so that's why everything is becoming a live service now. Aside from the fact that it's, we all get to be interconnected, and people like the idea of, progressing on this one thing. And there's a million design reasons why it's a great thing. So how that's going to change in the future, I can't really say. I know that there's going to be an issue with the idea of, we've historically had the idea of we buy a game, we now have a physical disc, this game belongs to me. That's not something we're going to have anymore. We are now licensing the ability to experience something from some other company. And I expect there may at some point be some fallout, maybe some pushback from consumers against that. But yeah, that's yet to be seen. I expect there to be something that happens with regards.
Oh, there's a lot of pushback, actually. Getting people to purchase digital codes, and especially like having even a subscription to a streaming service. This is what we've kind of found, or what we had found years ago with PlayStation. But yeah, people want to own something. They want to know that they paid their $60 and they get to have it. And if they want to give it to their friend, they can, or if they want to sell it back to GameStop, they can. But as soon as you kind of digitize that or make that as part of a larger collection, you don't have that ownership anymore. I myself am not crying over my loss of my massive DVD collection that I got rid of years ago. So I don't know that we're going to be too sad about it for too long, but I could definitely, $60 is a lot to spend on something that you can't do things with, I guess.
Yep.
Well, Erin, and I'll go back to you before I go to Grant, because I feel like we have played this movie before in the music industry and the movie industries that gladly went away from media, from physical media, and why will games be any different?
I think because it can be digital. That's really the thing, is it's a convenience thing. You get to have your sort of shelf of games. I prefer it because I don't have to go hunt down the disc and go find that. So for me, it's preferred. But again, like I said, that resale value, that having a physical something that has a value that can then be distributed or given value elsewhere, I think is something that's really tough for people to sort of break that mindset. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's a lot of money. Games are expensive. Some games are very expensive. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're kind of already in that hybrid right now, where half our stuff is digital, half of stuff is disc. If you want to buy disc only, you can. If you want to buy digital only, you can. So, let the consumer choose, I think.
Absolutely. So Grant, let's bring it home. Rising cost of producing videos, a few names that dominate the marketplace to get those video games to people, where does that take us?
Yeah, so excellent what other people said. So I'll try not to repeat too much, but for me, the big one that I've been focused the most on is the rising cost of development. And I think that when Epic showed Unreal 5, everyone was like, "This is amazing," and I was like, all the money, because the graphical fidelity that I already argue with artists enough to be like, that's good enough, move on. Now they're going to be like, it has to be millimeter perfect, and I'm just going to weep endlessly. But the good thing with that stuff is because of the way engines are being built these days, both proprietary and big ones like Epic, because of the way that they're being built, it's easy for people to start to build on plugins and things that actually are speeding up development. So I think we're about to hit the peak. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to hit the peak of development cost. And then I think it's going to start to go down as our tools really improve and we can automate more things. And that's not like automation in the way that people are going to be losing jobs. It's going to be simplifying people's jobs. So it'll be, making effects will be easier, making lighting will be easier. And when those become easier, people get to focus more on more things as opposed to just really making one thing really, really perfect. So that's been a big part of my focus. As far as the distribution channels, we are seeing a loss, since people won't be buying their games soon at Walmart or places like that. They might be buying digital codes. But ultimately, all those markets take the same percentage from us. And so for us, it's about finding the best relationships that take the smallest percentage and hit the largest amount of developers. And that's why, a little bit biased, but that's why I'm so excited by the Epic Game Store, because they're taking a lower percentage from people and they have a massive audience. People don't realize how massive that audience is because of Fortnite, right? Like Fortnite has 300 million players or whatever, and almost all of them have an account. Well, all of them have an account, and almost all of them have the launcher. If they're playing on PC, they have the launcher. So I think distribution in that way is going to be better. The distribution channels that I'm most frustrated with are mobile distribution channels. Those drive me absolutely crazy. Apple Store is the worst thing I've ever dealt with in my career. I've shipped on every console and worked with every device, but shipping something and trying to get in touch with someone at Apple is just impossible. And that hurts development a lot, because I can't get an update out in a timely manner because I'm waiting for them to do whatever weird black box thing they do. And so it's interesting to see people revolting from those platforms. Google's the Android store is pretty easy to use, but people are kind of moving away, waiting for someone else to make a store that works. And it was really exciting when I saw Epic be like, we're going to do our own thing. Ultimately, it didn't work out, but still, it was a nice move of them on mobile. So it is painful because you instantly lose 30%, 20 to 30% of your money to a platform that seems like it's not doing a lot for you.
A lot of controversy over that. I'd like to move into a combination of technologies now. In every panel that I do here, folks end up touching one way or another two technologies: artificial intelligence and virtual reality. We've spoken quite a bit about virtual reality today. But AI, has been with gaming from the very beginning. Since Pac-Man and probably even before then. It's a way to get the bad guys to be intelligent. And I cannot imagine all the ways that AI is being used today. In one of this session, I interviewed Sean McCabe, head of technology at Insomniac, and he said that the latest release that they had for Spider-Man, the visuals would have not been possible without artificial intelligence. And he didn't go much deeper than that. So I'd like to actually bring it up here. How is artificial intelligence, AI, being used in gaming today? I'll start with you, Erin.
Geez, I am not going to be the best person to answer this. I did want to ask Grant the question, though. Are we going to get AI assisted development? I'm waiting for some sort of AI to be able to make fancy stuff for me. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, AI has been a part of our industry for forever. I'm really excited about the AI that we have now in our phones, in our cars, and our little personal assistants here. I am excited to, just have a world where I just tell my phone to make my hair appointment for me, and then it does that. So I haven't tried out the Google technology. I've heard that it exists, but I am scared of it. So, but that's the kind of AI that I am really excited about. Is just, how does it make my life easier, and I think that's kind of the most applicable way that I that I use it. So
I did read about an AI that was able to start creating code and to spot problems, create the code, and fix it. And
yeah, that's awesome.
Very much in development still, as far as I know. But let's ask Alejandro what he thinks about AI and gaming.
I mean, I think the most significant impact AI will have in gaming is in the development process. I think the nature of most developers' job is going to change. Let's start with like animators as an example. Right now, an animator will take a rig and apply it on a mesh, and will keyframe the different things, and the animation kind of lerps between, and they kind of capture poses and lerp between the poses. That's or they'll take performance capture and then kind of clean up performance capture. I think the nature of an animator's job will change from that to learning how to train a machine learning algorithm, feeding it the right data, giving it the right weights in order to make an animation that can go through an environment in the way that they want. And it's difficult to describe it in the short amount of time, but yeah, I think there's going to be examples like that in pretty much every discipline, I believe.
Wow, that sounds exciting. How about you, Grant? You keep nodding there. How do you think AI will affect game development?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be huge in the way that Alejandro is talking about. We're going to be able to offload a lot of repetitive tasks and cleanup tasks and things like that. I mean, we've been using AI in developments for as long as I've been, making games. I remember the first mobile games or touchscreen games I was working on. We had an AI called the 1,000 Monkeys, and it would just smash the screen thousands of times, and then it would find an error would happen, and it would report the error to you, or the bug would come in. And so that was basically offloading a bunch of testing, which was really nice. And that was 12, 13 years ago. So that's been a huge part of development as long as I've been making games is automation, testing, and things like that. I think what Alejandro is talking about is the logical next step of helping artists and eventually developers close up these things. I think what the gamer will start to see a little bit more is adaptive gameplay. Right now, when you select easy, hard mode or whatever, those are all generally defines, right? Like I, as a designer, would go in and define what those look like. We've seen a few games do this in the last 5 years where they adapt the difficulty on the fly. And I don't mean like a Elder Scrolls where you become more powerful, the AI becomes more powerful, but I mean that the game will rubber band just like a racing game where the AI will, the cars will always stay close to you and make you feel excited. They'll be smarter and slower and things like that. So we'll see games working that way. And part of the excitement of cloud gaming is that we can offload all of that online. Most people don't realize that was the original intent for Xbox. When everybody flipped out that it was always on, is that we would be offloading AI calculations to the server somewhere, and they'd be coming back. So I think that's going to be the most visible things for players. I think there's thousands of other things we'll be doing as well, but that'll be probably one of the early visible things to players, that the game itself is learning how you play and adapting to play in your style.
Yeah, we're working on looking at like just-in-time help systems and things like that within a game. If you're stuck on a boss, we automatically bring up a YouTube video that'll show you, here's the walkthrough, here's the point in which you're getting stuck. This is how you do it. Do you want this help? And being able to actually intelligently get people assistance, especially as we see this in esports, being able to see where your improvements need to be. How do you actually are you actually hitting those headshots? Is your reaction time actually as good as you think it is? So AI assisted coaching and things like that to just improve at the game.
Wow, this is so exciting. Every time I ask questions about AI, I get more excited about it. 2 weeks ago, Rob from Netflix talked about the technology, the AI technology they use to choose the thumbnail that you're going to click on. And the AI goes through the entire movie to select the thumbnails, to put it in front of you, and to test it with you and everybody else. So that's how everybody gets a different thumbnail of the movie that will maximize you clicking on it to see it. And there's no human in it. It's all automatically making those decisions. So it's a great way to improve experience without having to go through all the hard work of that. So we're getting towards the end of our session here, and I always like to talk a little bit about the things that we haven't talked about that are exciting. So, I prepare some questions the best way I see them, but we all in technology are always excited about something that is happening today that is incredibly exciting for the future. Being in technology or gaming or an area that gaming is influencing. So what do you see today that makes you really excited about the future? I'll start with you, Grant.
Man, I knew you were going to come to me. What's really excited me the most about the technology in games is the ability to teach people. So if you really look in the world, the best way and the purest way to learn is through play. I love to use the example where if you look at cats, right, like lions or something, the way they learn to hunt is by stalking their parents and then jumping on them, right? So they learn through play. And it turns out that's the same with humans. That's the best way we can learn. And so as we've been developing this new technology, increasing accessibility and lowering the barriers of entry, it just increases the amount of people that we can have a positive impact on teaching them, different life skills and things like that. So I've worked with different companies that are working on, using VR and gloves and haptics to train people to do jobs that are fairly dangerous. So they don't have to go in and do those jobs. We've had simulators forever for the military, but these are for more, traditional jobs of people working with hazardous waste and working in factories and things like that. That really excites me. And then also, the people who are working on games that have positive impacts, that are teaching people, about different things like climate change and how to be more sustainable and things like that. That really excites me. And I think that, the technology itself, as it grows, it just enables us to bring, games to more people. And then kind of the last bit of that is using what we learn about games and gamifying to encourage people and bring people into learning, right? It's been interesting. I've been using Duolingo for like 6 years now, and to see them learn more about games as they change, and the right things that they do and the wrong things that they do, that encourage people to learn more, or over gamify it and they're not learning it at all. So I think, companies like that are driving that learning model. So I'm excited to see how we can be teaching the next generation through play.
That's super cool. Thank you, Grant. Alejandro, what it is today in technology or gaming that gets you really excited about the future?
I kind of hinted at this before, but I think one of the most exciting things for me right now is all the innovations that are happening in location-based. From theme park experiences to like mall experiences to the VR stand-ups that are happening. Even I mean, it's not very technological, but escape rooms are becoming a big thing. I think the location-based experience is huge, and when it's technology enabled, it's that much better for it. So and it allows the experiences we get from our consoles, from our PCs. There's a very it's a very defined, finite system of controls, and you're getting it from the screen, you're inputting in this way, but the location base allows for much more bespoke and custom experiences that you can't get anywhere else unless you go to this place, and it's a social experience. So that's what excites me the most at this point.
Thank you, Alejandro. And Erin, what's happening today that gets you really excited about the future?
Oh man, well, you know what? I've been watching Twitch since it was Justin TV, and just like really been enjoying watching this sort of moving from just being this sort of passive viewing experience to now we're starting to find more ways to play together where we're actually blurring the experience of watching and playing. So more ways for audiences to get engaged with their favorite streamers and play alongside them. I want a world where I can take a save game from my favorite streamer at right the point that they were at, take that with their exact loadout, put it on and play just as if they were playing, see if I can beat a boss with the exact loadout that they have and things like that. So, just more ways to play together, more ways to engage with these people that we really love watching, more ways to engage with our friends. The explosion of PvP, PvE content that you can play in groups, these battle royales and things like that has been awesome for me personally, because I have a gaming group of friends and we love, checking out new stuff all the time. So multiplayer games have been hitting the spot for us. And then, yeah, I mean, to kind of what Alejandro was saying, these location-based things, I also want to be able to take those experiences and bring them home too. So I want to go to EDC and experience it from my living room. A lot of music festivals have gone online and digital, and they're showing these DJs from around the world, and people have adapted Zoom as their unofficial dance party. So you get into these Zooms where there are like 500 people and everyone has their webcams on and everyone's dancing. They have costumes on, they have crazy lights in the background, and it is the most fun experience. So just more ways to feel connected to each other without having to leave my nice, safe office here.
That's great. So we're getting to the and now we are at the end. I want to really thank you, Erin and Grant and Alejandro, for taking time out of your busy lives. And something that we've learned during these days, that time is precious. And so it's the biggest gift you can give somebody. So we really appreciate your time. I want to invite everyone to 2 weeks from now, which we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence today. And we'll have another great panel of full sail professionals that work in technology. Thank you so much. That will be on July 28th. Bye-bye.